Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my videos. If you click the link, you obviously already know what I'll be making, so I'm just gonna say it. It's the Kashira head brothers from Spirited Away. I had to look up what they were called. I didn't know that they were just called Kashira off the top of my head. I'm not this like weeb genius. But yeah, I guess Kashira translates to head in Japanese, so it makes sense that this is what they're called. I believe they're referred to as brothers. I don't know, but to me they seem like obviously related, so let's just run with that. As with all of my creature slash character cakes, when I first saw the movie, because they're mostly movies, I was really taken aback, and they really left an impression when I first saw these characters. They were just really ugly. I'm sorry if that's a terrible term to use, but like to me they were really pleasing to look at. The way their eyes were kind of wonky and looking in different directions, and the way they kind of plopped around. I mean, they're not traditionally what you'd call beautiful, but to me it was just really satisfying to see. If you haven't seen my other Spirited Away cake, I made No Face, or the freaky scary froggy version of him. So yes, this is my second Spirited Away cake. Please don't forget to check that video out, whichever side it's on, because I was pretty happy with how that one came out too. But yes, another Studio Ghibli cake, and definitely not the last. My husband and I just decided to, within a year or a little over a year, to take a trip to Japan. We've both never been, and it would be probably a pretty lengthy trip compared to what we usually go on, and we're both super excited to go. But this really invigorated my love for like animated movies and pretty much everything Japanese. So I'm really excited to show you guys the cake making process. Enough talking, let's go ahead and do this. So I definitely skipped a few parts when filming. I had made this cake from boxed cake mix as usual, and I had made a giant batch of frosting to use for today as well as future projects. You could actually stick frosting in the freezer and it lasts pretty much forever. I do have to warn you that when I cut the cake up and I started frosting, everything looked very potato-y. I know it might be a little hard to look at. I am definitely not a professional. I'm just kind of winging it as I go, hoping and fingers crossing that it'll work out in the end. But apologies for the ugly aesthetic. It'll really feel like it just starts to get worse and worse, but please do bear with me. I had used green food coloring, and I also decided to use green candy melts for the modeling chocolate to cover the actual cake. After the cakes had cooled in the fridge for a bit and kind of solidified so they weren't kind of slipping everywhere, I then took them back out and then cut these quarters into more of a round head shape. So yeah, I did use like a 9-inch cake pan instead of my usual 6-inch cake pans that I used with my other projects, just because I knew the Kashira heads would be on a smaller scale. Like I wasn't gonna do full-size heads for these cakes. I just wanted to do mini ones. So I used a 9-inch cake pan and cut them into quarters. So it did look a bit awkward, but I'm pretty happy with the method that I went for. After I got the basic shape down, I was using this reference to try to sort of carve like where the main features would be. Like he has a rather large nose, and it'd be really nice to show where his eyes should lay. I like to use a paring knife for smaller details. Unfortunately, this wasn't the right way I should have gone about it, because as you'll see in the future, once I covered it in modeling chocolate, it just kind of covered all the cutting that I had done. And it Also kind of took forever.
1 hour later.
I felt a little bit silly that I had done that work, but you just gotta soldier on. And here they are all frosted, now looking like mashed potatoes instead of just potatoes. Here's that modeling chocolate I had made a big batch of. It's actually a mixture of these light green meltables that I also use like a little bit of brown and some white to kind of give it that almost olive shade that the Kashira heads have. The cakes were taken out of the fridge after their crumb coats had finished hardening, and then I proceeded to try to lay the modeling chocolate down. I was confident up until this point somewhat when I realized modeling chocolate doesn't really like to blend with other pieces. So I had to really think about what I was doing.
5 minutes later.
So after a lot of thinking, I just kept going forward. There's like not much I can really do. I mean, it's easier to work with than fondant, but it's still a little tricky. For the next cake, I decided to actually roll out a whole slab of the modeling chocolate instead of doing piece by piece so that I'd have less edges to work with. I also have to say that it was very cold this week when I was making the cake, so everything that I was working with was just very not pliable and stubborn, and I'm terrible at laying down the fondant and modeling chocolate. I mean, he kind of looked like Grogu at this point, but I just cut off the excess and did my best to kind of blend those edges. So as you can see, all the little cuts I had done in the cake sponge were covered up by the modeling chocolate, so that was pretty much a fruitless endeavor. But I decided to go in back with some sculpting tools to kind of really mark out where it really is on the chocolate, and that would be a much easier template to follow. The first coating of modeling chocolate, it might not be perfect, but that's okay because that's usually just like the base I like to start with, and then I build up from there. He has a very prominent nose, as I had mentioned before, as well as a brow and cheekbones. I am using my hands a lot. I'm sorry if that grosses anybody out, but the only people that are eating these cakes are me and my husband. And yes, we're trying to do our best not to gain any weight from it. But sorry if this is triggering. I don't have gloves, but I do wash my hands every time. Right when I thought I was progressing, I realized that the nose I had originally sculpted was a little bit too small for the head, like in terms of scale. It looked kind of like a Shrek nose. So I took it off and decided to add more bulk to it so that it's way more prominent. And I was a lot happier that I did this. He does have like that bump on his nose bridge as well as like a bit of a hook. So it's kind of like a classic, like big witchy nose, if that makes any sense. Next up was using his facial hair. I decided to start with the beard first. Just bits of brown modeling chocolate that was actual chocolate flavored, my favorite flavor of all the colors. And then I went in with details with a sculpting tool to make it look more like hair. He definitely had like kind of like a WWE look at this point. So I don't know if you guys noticed it, but I definitely didn't notice until I started working on their mustaches that there's like one head brother that has a full classic mustache, and then his two like buddies have partial mustaches. I didn't even realize that, and I've probably seen the movie like, I don't know, 5 times or so. So I like how at least there's that difference to give more interest. So the other brothers with the partial mustaches, it's kind of like a cone triangle shape. They remind me of those bamboo shoot chocolates if you've ever seen them at like the Japanese market. I don't know if this is like a problematic thing to say, but they definitely look more Japanese, like more Studio Ghibli at this point. Final facial hair were the eyebrows. It was a tedious process, so I'm just gonna speed right through it. My hands were also freezing at this point, so this was kind of a challenge to do like light little delicate work. The cold really made the chocolate want to break apart, so I would have to take breaks and sort of just like sit in front of my little space heater. I know it looks like I'm going to the bathroom or just like a random businessman on the street in Asia. But yeah, that was the only way to make the chocolate more moldable at that point. Excuse me for eating a lollipop. I know I look kind of chipmunky. But this is when I started to put on the pupils and irises, and when I felt like the project was really taking shape. Like, there'll just be a point where I just start laughing and smiling because I feel like, in my opinion, the cake project has become a success, and it's a really happy moment, and I do enjoy it a lot. And here they are. But I think they came out really cute. Definitely not as labor intensive as my other cakes, but I think in terms of design they came off just as strong. I didn't mention it, but the cake sponge flavor is almond. I actually wanted to eat all of it for once because sometimes I tend to throw away leftover cake scraps. But here is the midsection of the Kashira head. Please excuse the brown streak. That's just like the bottom of the cake. I just didn't want to waste any cake scraps. And then the last step was just putting away the extras. You can always freeze cake, it lasts for a long time, and I love how these are like perfectly portioned for me to just snack on once a week. And those were my little Kashira cakes. I was really happy with how they turned out. I'm still getting around how to lay down modeling chocolate and fondant if I ever go back to it, so I'm sorry if that induced a lot of rage with you guys to see me just kind of clumsily go at it, but that's just been my method as always. But I really hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I had fun making it. I still have a lot more exciting new projects to come, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you're the first to know, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!